Yeah, let's move on then. Things are changing now. A lot of things are changing, right? And I think there's this big concern that we're moving too fast. We're opening too fast. It feels like we are, though, aren't we? I don't know. Tell me, man. Like, why are we moving too fast? Are the governors and are they just bending to the desires of the people, or what's going on? Like, let's talk about this.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really hard question, right? If we are looking at the lens of purely COVID public health, right? Health in relation to how it's affected by COVID only, then yes, we shouldn't be opening, right? I don't think if that's all you're concerned about, then it's definitely not the right time to open. But on the other hand, I think, for me, it's been a personal struggle too, right? Because as an epidemiologist, if we had our way, right, like if we could have the ideal world where we could just shut down the world for 4 months, right, or not 4 months, 4 weeks, right, and just have everyone isolated, no contact, and then COVID goes away, right? But that's not possible. So within the realm of like, people who can't pay for food for a month, right? People who have trouble, if they without their job, their paycheck doesn't allow them to buy food or whatnot, then for me, I don't have those problems where I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from, or my job is stable, and so for me, it's easy to say stay at home, right? But if we look at, I think there's a lot of like the economic costs, right? The mental health costs, and I think, I was watching the last episode of George, and I think you guys talked a lot about the fear of COVID, but I was wondering, what his opinion would be on kind of depression and suicide aspect of this, because one of the stats that I heard recently is the call volume to suicide hotlines has increased by 8,000%,
Oh,
right?
wow. That's
And
insane.
you know that to me is like kind of it's shocking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're considering all the different health issues, right? um, Annually heart disease kills about 650,000, right? Cancer is about 600,000, which means if you evenly spread it out across the year, a 3 month period is, let's say, 150,000 cancer cases, right? And if we're delaying detection, treatment, things like that, then I think there are a lot of unseen costs that we may not be able to fully quantify right now.
You mean if
And
we're delaying? You mean delaying cancer treatment or tests because of COVID?
yeah, right.
I see.
Because you're stuck at home, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
more worried about going to the hospital and being exposed to COVID, or you're delaying kind of routine care, right? Like routine checkups have declined significantly since the start of COVID, right? There's a lot of telehealth, but again, I think um, the amount of treatment people are getting just on a regular basis has gone down. And if that's the case, for example, with a aggressive cancer, 3 months is a very long time, right? Some of the most aggressive cancers, you'll get timelines of like 6 months to a year to live untreated, right? And so, with those kind of statistics in mind too, if we're just thinking about staying at home, for a very prolonged period, I think there is a time where we should start weighing other costs, like the economic costs, right? If we're saying that, one of the recent articles I read quoted about 100,000 businesses, small businesses, have gone bankrupt in the last, since we started kind of the stay-at-home orders. And with stress and all that, like, what are the consequences that we can't measure easily, right? COVID is generally easier to measure. So, I think those are all things we need to consider, and it gives me pause to say, we should stay locked down indefinitely until it goes away.
Yeah, that's helpful, man, because I think there is that reality for a lot of us, probably a lot of our listeners too. Like, we can stay at home, right? It's And I mean, I confess, and I get really angry when I see people protesting and things like that. I mean, I think sometimes I'm definitely justified to be angry. I still don't think you should be protesting like just because you can't go to the beach. No offense to anyone who's listening. That's my
Yeah, I fully
opinion.
agree with you.
Yeah,
Like,
but
if it's a selfish reason, then it's like, just stay home, right? Like,
yeah,
I want to go to the beach. Okay, well, just stay home. But, if it's like work or,
right, right.
survival related, then
See,
it's harder to
but
say.
I think
Hmm.
it's really important to make that distinction, though,
Hmm.
Andrew. It's like
Yeah.
you're not saying okay, like it's basically you're saying there are legitimate reasons, right, that people
Hmm.
need to be outside or whatever, kind of,
For like the
you know,
well-being of society,
Hmm.
actually,
right,
not just
right,
about like my right to like go
or
play somewhere. Yeah,
inconvenience
Hmm.
or
and
Like
I think
haircuts,
yeah.
right? Like, you really need a haircut. There's
By the way, Daniel, is that why you're wearing a hat?
Bro, my
It's because you have your
hair,
COVID hair.
it's a COVID mane right now, dude. It's untamable.
Yeah, I'd like to say there's an epidemic of bad haircuts right now because people are doing, home cuts left and right and shaving their heads. So,
Dude, those are badges of honor though, right? Those ugly haircuts. I love that. Or stuff like this.
oh
Um,
yeah.
Oh, put it back on.
um, joking aside, I'm glad you pointed that out, Stephen. Yeah, I think it's important to make that distinction. That's so important. But it's also interesting, and I think it's important that to be aware that it's more complicated than hey, just stay at home because people are dying of COVID. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I think there is some of that messaging around like you're like a selfish murderer if you want to go out, right?
Mm,
I
mm,
think that doesn't help either, right?
yeah.
Where it's like there are vulnerable populations that we need to protect, and if we're not, trying to get outside for selfish reasons, then, I think it it's harsh to say that to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and if anything, it puts them even more against you, right?
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, like when's the last time you calling someone like like stupid or a murderer, you know, helps your case? It rarely ever does, right? Unless it's a really
All the
good friend.
time.
It feel
All the time
it
in my
feels
personal
good.
arguments.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
isn't that the Christian thing to do though? Is just
Oh
to call
yeah.
people idiots? So, no, that's really helpful, dude.
So, but Andrew, I feel like you're talking about like the people that are working in like the meat packing factories,
Hmm.
or like these really like people that have service jobs, like restaurant workers or grocery store workers. But I don't think anyone's telling those people, "Hey, you're a murderer for staying at home," right? I
For
think
leaving,
what
yeah, for leaving.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean. I mean, I think where most people would say the problem is people that don't really have an essential reason to be out or to be at the beach or to be protesting at the state capitol or something. Isn't that what we're really talking about?
Yeah, ideally that's who we're talking about, right? But I think in our world today there are so many generalizations
Hmm.
that I feel like those get conflated.
Hmm.
Now, hopefully, everyone who's listening and, all of us, we're all seeing it from that angle of, yeah, if you're not essential to be outside or, leaving your home, then that's the message that, like we want you to stay home. But I think often that gets lost.